do you have any words of wisdom as to like how to take back your voice?
When I do this thing, I'll have like a fear of something. Like there's a deal I'm working on right now that I'm nervous about, right? I write from the perspective of my nervousness and I say, how scared I am and all of that stuff. And then I ask myself, what would you like me to know? What are you here to tell me? And my voice, that voice of me actually has a lot of amazing wisdom. It has a lot I can learn. And so instead of saying, don't be nervous, it's a dialogue. And for me, I literally write it out both ways.
I love that.
Welcome to Good Enough with the Trauma Therapist, a podcast dedicated to empowering you to take control of your life, learning valuable strategies for healing and looking at mental health through a trauma-informed lens. Get ready to feel empowered and confident in managing your symptoms. And now, here is your host, licensed clinical social worker, EMDR therapist, and certified clinical trauma professional, Jamie Vollmoeller.
Welcome to Good Enough. I am your host, Jamie Vollmoeller, and today we are here with the lovely Sharon Conour, and she is a real estate investment person. What would you call that? A real estate investment
I'm an investor. Yeah, I'm a real estate investing entrepreneur. I have a company.
She has a company called Real Estate Curious. You can find them at realestatecurious.com. And we're here today to kind of talk about her journey through her own struggles in life and how that trauma can kind of impact our mindset in business. So Sharon, I'm going to let you start by just sharing a little about your background and where you came from.
Yeah. Well, I once won the prize of according to one therapist, having the worst story she's ever heard in 30 years.
Oh, I'm sorry they said that to you.
No, I love about that. I'm like, really, thanks a lot for that. So I was interested in this idea of talking about that as an entrepreneur, like as so some of it is obviously retrospective now, but I had kind of a lot of horrificness, and then I really got into kind of the entrepreneurial journey, in a time in which I was going through a very terrible divorce, a physically abusive marriage to someone who was very opposite of me in terms of the ambition in life too. So it was what seemed like the most horrible time in my life. But I always wanted to do this. I always wanted to do this real estate thing. And so I finally and he left me after all that. And
Biggest blessing of your life, I'm sure.
Yeah. And when people get divorced, when people get telling me that they get divorced now, I say, oh, congratulations. This is going to be so good. It's going to feel awful for a minute, but it's the best thing best thing that's happened.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that, being an entrepreneur myself, I know that just our socialization as women makes it really hard for us to be business leaders in general, just because of the additional judgment that we face just being a woman with a voice and being a strong woman that, is commanding authority and leading other people. We're not usually talked about in very good terms. But then if you couple that with, a domestically abusive relationship, I know before you had mentioned that, there was a lot of messaging around like a woman's role and staying in your relationship and staying in that marriage no matter what. And like how all of that, how do you think that impacted you once you were out? Like what was the struggle? What was the biggest struggle you had in having that confidence to get started?
Yeah. I think the biggest struggle was knowing that there was a struggle. It's so ingrained that you don't, like, what's that? This is water. book. I don't know if you know that concept. Like your fish don't know they're in water.
Yeah.
I didn't even know this wasn't fact. I didn't know that it's not true that women are just there to look pretty for men. Like, and so just to know, oh wait, there's a burning desire here to do something on my part, and I'm allowed to have that.
Yeah.
Was really, and even now continues to be a revelation for me. Like I consider this part of myself really kind of miraculous, because I literally was explicitly told what women are supposed to do. And it's certainly not making money. It's certainly not having, people working for you. It's certainly not being a business owner. God forbid. I mean, that wasn't,
No,
there wasn't a question.
I totally hear what you're saying. And like, even me, like I had a family that my mom was a single mom. So she's very supportive of me going to school. She was very like, you need to have your own career. But it got a little strange when I opened up my own business. That seemed like a whole nother level that my family was just like, but you need to be a mom. Like, how are you going to do this and spend time with your kids? And you need to focus on your family. And I'm like, but I can do both. And they're like, no, you can have a career, but you can't run a business. Like it was just, which they're now way more on board. But it's just so interesting how like that messaging is of like, this is just distracting from the core of what your role should be and what your womanhood represents. And I think that it's really remarkable that you came out of that. We're just like, yeah, I'm going to start a business now. Like, screw it. We got nothing else to lose at this point, right?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is that I didn't come to that realization really. I have some, ironically, I have some men to thank for that. I was in a regular career. I was a computer engineer, which was a very male dominated world. And I had men who just lifted me up like crazy. They just fully believed in me. And that helped a lot.
Yeah.
And then I had a husband who had a very different idea. I got remarried to someone wonderful. That's a happy story. But his perception of money was so different than mine that I had to step up my game. I had to like expand what I thought was normal in terms of what you could make.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna figure out how to move out of this box again in a different way. And I started deciding, I set really big goals for myself, and I keep doing that. But I think exposure to other people is so key. Putting yourself in the presence of other people that normalize something different for you is, it's not something I can totally take credit for. It's that exposure helps so much.
Well, because you need that supportive community, right? When we're trying to change our thought process from like, I'm incapable, I'm unworthy, this is my role, to actually expanding into what we want to be. Because you said like you've always fantasized about doing real estate and doing all that stuff, but it just never felt like that could be your role. And then meeting people that were like, no, you're totally capable of this, and marrying someone who's supportive. And I could say, my husband is the most supportive husband in the world, thank God, because I wouldn't be able to do what I do without him. Because when I doubt myself, it's good to have like a room of cheerleaders almost around you, because we all doubt ourselves. We all get that imposter syndrome where we're like, can I really do this? Are people going to care?
I think there's two parts that for sure, like the cheerleaders, God, we have so much against us. We for sure need some opposing force in the other direction. Absolutely. But the other piece of that cheerleader squad, or they might not even be cheerleaders. They're the people that just are like, yeah, you can make $500,000. I remember the first time I heard a salary of $675,000. That was, my brain blew open. I
Yeah.
was like, I didn't know that was a thing you could do. And that expanded me,
Yeah.
expanded my possibility, even though this wasn't a person who was saying, you can too. They were just stating it like a fact.
Yeah.
So who's around you can just on it all on its own make
'Cause
you a whole
you're
different.
right. It's the messaging, right? If you have people around you that are like, "Yeah, this is possible. Yeah, that's possible." Like whatever you can dream up, you can make is very different than having people around you. And that can be really hard in the beginning, especially we come from families that tend to be a little more pessimistic or like if that's what we're raised in, the people around us tend to parrot the same kind of beliefs that we have. It's just kind of human nature. But when you surround yourself
Yeah,
with people that are more strengths based and like abundant mindset is really what there's this different mindset of like anything you put your mind to, you can achieve. And it might not happen overnight, right? Like we might have
for
to
sure not going to happen overnight. Don't
set,
listen to them if they say that.
oh yeah, no, there are no guarantees. Anyone who's selling you a course that's like, do this and you're going to be rich
Yeah.
in like 2 months, like nonsense.
Mm-mm.
It's a lot of hard work, a lot of perseverance
And time,
and
a lot of
time.
patience, and a lot of time. That's my
Yeah.
experience anyway. I'm 25 years into this, and I'm still figuring it out.
So how do you help the people that you work with and
Yeah,
like gaining that confidence to go out? Like cuz real estate is that's big money, girl. Like that's
it,
big money. Like that's
that's
you have to have a lot of
exactly right.
confidence.
You put the nail on the head. That's exactly how I ended up doing this. Is it occurred to me? Oh, we're asking people go out and make like the biggest single purchase of your life. Just go out there and it's going to be great. It's going to be fine. And it's it's too much for most of us to go and take that on. So how I help people, I mean, on a personal note, I do try to be that person who makes it normalized for someone else that they could, for sure, if I can do this, you can definitely do this. That is for real. Like I have, this is true. I have 27 brain injuries.
Oh my goodness.
So I learn slowly, and that used to be a problem. And now I realize, oh, it helps me really learn something and turn it around in a very succinct, easy to understand way. Cause it's been such a challenge for me to get that right. So
Yeah.
I can teach other people. So it's another way I help. I take complex concepts and I
Break them down.
make them, yeah. And then I help people make investments with my expertise, with my 25 years of experience brain,
Mhm.
and handhold through the whole thing. So they can make much smaller investments, and I can help them find money. Like I try to help in all kinds of ways, but maybe the most important way is just saying, like, you have a person with you who's doing this, who is experienced, but there's another person here who's again normalizing it, making it seem like a thing that people do, and they do.
Yeah.
But it's not, it's so hard to do that by yourself.
Oh, I just buying my own house that was like the house I'm going to live in
Hmm.
was beyond stressful. Like buying a house as an investment, right? And then knowing, okay, I have to have this in my budget for repairs. I have to have this in my budget in case all these things go wrong, right? I have to know how much time I'm going to need to pay this mortgage before we can even put it on the market, before it's ready to go up. And all of those calculations, like that's a lot to come up with on your own. And you're definitely going to mess it up if you don't have the experience because there's no way your brain is going to be able to accurately estimate those timeframes. And those
Hmm.
timeframes, I am sure, because my dad is in a million different things, but he's like a jack of all trades. But so he's flipped houses before. So I know from
Oh,
him
nice.
that like, the timeline can be messed up or,
Yes.
you go to put something in and then there's mold. It's just, it really depends on the area you're into. Some areas you can move very quickly. And some areas there's like limited resources and things are going to go much slower.
Yeah.
So
I gotta
having
tell
a
you,
guide, I'm sure, is key to not losing your mind in that
yeah.
situation.
So my very first investment I ever made was with my best friend. So we did it together. I had savings. He had an income that I needed. So that again, I didn't do it by myself. I did it with someone else. I don't know what I would have done if I was doing it by myself. And we worked for the same company. We worked together. That's how we met. And then we both lost our jobs. I mean, talk about trauma.
Yeah.
God, it was so awful. But you know, there's my story, right? Like it was, I understand how scary. I remember sweating through the night, knowing that that I had just finally done it. And now neither of us
Have an
have
income to
jobs.
even fund this, right? So then
Yeah.
it's like, okay, next, what do you do next,
All
right?
your grand plans right out the window.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we had supported each other. And, and so, that's more than 24 years ago now. And I look back now and it all makes perfect sense how it all happened. And I understand now that was so helpful to me in my understanding of what other people go through and how much support can be needed.
For sure. For sure. How do you think that like having financial stability as a female, right? Having your own financial stability, your own um ability to just take care of yourself and not need to
Mm-hmm.
worry. Because I feel like in DV situations, especially, most of the women I work with, it's not that they don't know that they're in an abusive relationship. They feel trapped. They're like, I can't support my kids if I leave this relationship. I can't afford to get a lawyer. He'll take my kids for me and fight me in court because they have more money. Like, how for you does like that financial freedom really help to
You're gonna make
feel
me
more
cry,
confident?
Oprah.
Sorry.
You're gonna make me cry. It's so meaningful to me to have that to know, because that was a huge part of why I stayed. I mean, there was all the brainwashing, but in addition, I just frankly didn't think I had a choice. How was I going to take care of myself? I was 17 years old when I met my ex-husband. I didn't know any better. I didn't know how to. If I'd had the money, I probably would have gone. I probably would have left. So it kind of, I feel like I can lean back, knowing whatever happens, I can land on my feet. That's a huge. So it's not that I think things will always go well, but I do have that relief of knowing, oh, I know how to make money. I know how to take care of myself. If I had to get a job, I have so many skills. I could get a job, whatever I've got me. But also it makes me desperate to help other people have that same feeling. It's
I
it's
I
my
I
life's work.
I feel you because it is so important, and I think it's so important for just women in general, not even DV situations. Like we do not make what men make. It makes it harder for us to leverage, our voices in society because we're not paid what we are worth.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that because of how we're socialized and we're told to, not be seen, not be heard, not take up space. To be a good woman is to be quiet and submissive.
Don't be too much. Do not be too much. Yeah.
Yeah, we're either too much or not enough, right? We're all at the same time. And having the confidence to be like, yeah, I deserve better than this. I think that financial freedom really helps me feel like more confident as a woman. And my husband is wonderful regardless.
Yeah.
But I know for my mom, that was something that she drilled in us. Like, you do not want to be reliant on a man. You need to make sure that you get your education, that you can support yourself, that, God willing, you get married and it's wonderful. But if it's not, you need a way out. Because when she was with my dad at first, like she wasn't working. She was a stay-at-home mom. She had to, go back into the workforce. She had to get a job. She had to work her way up that job so that she could support two kids. And it was a struggle.
Yeah.
But I think there's also something about being women and especially I think mothers that just makes us like, I can do it. Like I don't know. At least for me, it's like I could do anything for my kids. For myself, forget it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So I didn't have my own children, but I have that same, I have the same feeling. Like I want to bring everyone along.
yeah,
It is a maternal instinct that I think we have to just, and I will do the things if I have, and if I have somebody who's depending on me for their investments, I'm superhuman. I'm superhuman compared to how I would be for myself. So I get that, but also loved what you said. You used the words financial freedom, and I'm thinking about those words a lot because I realize it means something different for everyone. It doesn't mean per se being wealthy or retirement or not working. It's the peace of mind of whatever financial freedom. What you just described was, if I need to go, I can go.
yeah,
I'm here because I want to be here, not because I have any reliance.
yeah. And I think that a lot of people that are in more privileged positions kind of take that for granted because there are so many women that don't have those opportunities to just go if they want to go. And we work with a lot of children and moms in my practice that have experienced domestic violence, and it's such a common theme.
Mhm.
But for those women, as a woman who's been in that situation, do you have any like words of wisdom as to like, how to take back your voice?
So I do this thing that I think I made up. It's sort of like a combination of lots of things I've learned, but this is how I do it. So I write. I'll have like a fear of something. Like there's a deal I'm working on right now that I'm nervous about. Right. I write. I write from the perspective of my nervousness, and I say, how scared I am and all of that stuff. And then I ask myself, I, that part of myself, what would you like me to know? What are you here to tell me?
Mhm.
And my voice, that voice of me actually has a lot of amazing wisdom. It has a lot I can learn. And so instead of saying, don't be nervous, stop being nervous, stop being scared, it's a dialogue. And for me, I literally write it out both ways.
I love that.
Yeah. And then I talk back and I say, is it okay? Do I have your consent to try something here? Would it be all right? And instead of forcing myself.
Yeah. And I think that's really, really wise. A lot of what we do, I love that you said parts of me. You've clearly been in therapy, girl, and done your work.
Oh, only 20 years. It's fine.
Go you.
I'm
I
new.
can tell, Sharon. It shows. No, it's so important because I think that's such a big part of it too, is like ignoring that inner voice that's like, I'm afraid or I'm scared or being angry with yourself for feeling
Yeah.
that way or ashamed that we're in this situation. And just taking a step back and being like, well, why am I scared right now? And what are we afraid is going to happen if I leave this situation or I don't leave this situation? And that inner voice always has all of this like stuff. And then you can sort through like, well, is that relevant now? Or that's true, but then maybe this is an alternate solution. And it's
Right.
having a conversation with yourself about, okay, I understand we're scared. How do we find another solution forward? So that
Yeah.
we feel a little
And
less.
it's always okay for there not to be a way forward, by the way. That is part of the trust that I build with myself is I'm not going to make you do something. If you really don't want to do it, we'll talk about it like I do with my husband.
Yeah.
We'll discuss. And if it's a no, for now, that's okay. That's good. And we won't do it. If it's too much, we won't do it.
And that is really important too, because I can think about times in my own like processing and therapy, especially in my 20s, when I would be like, no, I know I need to have this conversation with this particular person and I'm going to do it, even though everything in my body was screaming, I am not ready to have this conversation. Right.
Yes.
And then it wouldn't go well because
Does
I
not
wasn't
go well.
regulated. So it's like you really do got to listen to yourself, because there's sometimes that the logical parts of us know, like, okay, this needs to happen. But we also have to feel like all of us has to feel, all parts of ourselves need to feel safe going into that and being vulnerable, or it's going to go sideways real fast.
Yeah. And you have to have your own consent is what I think. And if you're doing something and it feels, not, it hasn't had to feel awesome. It can feel uncomfortable, but there is a band where it's over the line. And that's my wisdom speaking up and saying, this is not for us right now.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that word of consent is also like very interesting pick, but I love it because I feel like there's so many of us who feel like we didn't have control or a choice earlier on in life, and allowing ourselves to have that control now shouldn't be, it should be a no-brainer, but it doesn't feel like, it feels like a revelation almost, like,
100%.
oh yeah, I can
Constantly feels like, oh wait, I have a choice. Choice is something I have to remind myself of all the time. Yeah. And I think if I'd had that, I'm thinking back, like if I were in that position today where I was in a bad marriage or in a bad situation, I think it would have helped to know at least I have my own back. And I probably would have gotten there to the point of leaving maybe sooner.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't the force, it wasn't forced either to stay or to go. It's just what's knowing myself, what's the dialogue.
And it's
Am I too scared to
self-compassion.
go? Then we won't go. That's okay. But let's talk about it.
Yeah, I think that piece of like being compassionate to ourselves makes it so much easier for us to feel safe. Even if we're not in a safe situation, when we're not in a safe situation and we keep pushing down those parts of self that are coming up, or ignoring them, or getting angry with ourselves, or frustrated with ourselves, like it doesn't help. Like, and it really, like, I always say to my clients, like, if you were to speak to child, like you as a child, you wouldn't say these things, right? Because when we speak to children, if we are, or anyone, right? If you have employees, you don't speak to your employees and go, you suck at your freaking job. Like there's a way to
Why
present.
are you scared?
Yeah, like this was absolutely a useless project, right? Like the things that we say to ourselves, we would never say to other people because it's not going to be productive in getting them to do what we need to do, right? You might go to that employee and say like, hey, this really wasn't your best work. Let's go over this so we can improve it in the future, because I know that you have better quality work within you and I'm going to help you get to that quality of work that we're looking for here, right? And that's a positive message versus that was shit, we're going to throw it out. Like no one's going to respond to that, but we talk to ourselves like that all the time.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I remember hearing this called this whatever self-love thing and thinking, and this is what it is. It is literally even the parts, even the voices that are so rude to me sometimes, I am compassionate to. That's, I mean, not always, not 100%. There's always improvement. But this is what I've come to learn is like that kindness to all of it. To all of it is welcome. All of it is okay. Is self-love and causes me to do things in my life that I couldn't have done otherwise.
Yeah. So can you give an example of that, Sharon? Because I think that's really important for people to hear. Like, what is the difference in you now that you have compassion for yourself and you take your own consent into account before you act?
The the example would be really the level of business that I'm at right now. I mean, I was like, okay to do, things by myself. And then I started working with a partner, and literally you could look at my journal and tie my compassion for myself directly to how much money I make. I mean, I'm telling you, there's a correlation, and it's exponential, because I'm willing to take risks.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say risks, really, they're calculated, wise decisions, but with larger sums of money, by helping other people invest. And all of that requires, a phrase I use a lot, supporting the asset. Like, I can't do that if I'm not going to support myself, because things won't always go well. So I won't be willing to take the risk of, frankly, putting myself out there if I know I'm not going to have if I'm going to beat myself up about it.
Yeah.
Then, well, and that's going to hold me. That's the thing holding me back, really.
That makes a lot of sense. And is it just the financial freedom, or is it because I imagine like that always feels good. Seeing our bank account goes up feels good. But I think for me in my journey, it wasn't always about the numbers of so much how much I'm making, but just like seeing myself be able to do things that I never thought I would ever do in a million years. Like, I can't do that. I used to say I can't so many times a day that it's like, I look at myself now and I'm like, teenage me would be very impressed. You do a lot of things, girl. But I think the more that we believe in ourselves and we take these risks, and then we are successful, it reinforces that belief that like, yeah, I am capable. Yeah, I can do this. Yeah, people do like me. I don't need to hide behind this mask, right?
Yeah, I'm constantly shocked by it. It really, when I said about, there's a correlation between that and money, it isn't the money, it's isn't just the money. It is the shock that is a correlation. I never knew that until I started. It wasn't that I was doing it for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
I was just building kindness for myself. And then I saw the result of that. And I was like, oh, interesting. I think I'll do more of that. And it works.
Well, and that financial freedom also like gives you the ability to supplement your life in some ways that do make your life, it makes it easier to take care of yourself, right? Like, so I know for me, one of the things I did, I think it was like maybe a year ago, we started getting a nanny to come at night to help with not even just the kids. It was more like I wanted someone in my house while either me or my husband are home, or both of us was home, to cook the dinner and clean the house so that I could actually go play with my kids, because I didn't want to come home from working all day and then cook dinner, clean the house, like you don't get to spend any time. So for me, it was like, when someone first said that to me, like, hire someone to come over, I was like, but that's my role. And then I really thought about it and I'm like, no, my role is to be their mom. So like they can cook dinner. They don't need to have like they're a better cook than I am. But she can cook dinner.
And you get to define. Yeah, you get to define what that is. I mean, that is so empowering.
Yeah, I think that the financial also, it gives you way more flexibility in being able to live the kind of life that you want to live and have the kind of relationships that you want to have, or being able to, go to a gym or get a personal trainer to come to your house instead. Like, all of that is truly amazing. But even beyond that, just financial stability, like we said earlier, in being able to feel confident that no matter what choice you make, if you're in a bad situation, you can get yourself out of it and you don't have to rely on somebody else.
Yeah. And I would argue that it is still possible, even if you don't have financial stability, by being creative. Creative real estate is really what I actually do. And I do things very differently. But in your life, if you weren't able to find somebody who could come over and cook, if you were looking at it with new eyes, you might say, oh, well, I can trade with a girlfriend, or I can, I can take someone else's kids and they can cook dinner. We can find a way if we start to just look at what we need, pay attention to ourselves, and then say, well, how might I get this done if I decide this is what I need? How
Yeah.
else?
Yeah. Or, one of the things we do now, because I no longer have that nanny. But one of the
Sorry
things
about
we do
that.
now is gosh, it's fine. But I'll cook with the kids. Like I'll do things with them that I'm like, all right, let's make and honestly, they love it. They're way more likely to eat it because they made it. Right. So it might not be as gourmet as what the woman who came and cooked for us did, but it's special to them and they're learning skills and it's
Mhm.
quality time. And I think when we're able to open ourselves up to other solutions of how we can make things work with the resources we currently have.
That's what you've got.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Is
that's
really,
you
really
taking care
helpful.
of yourself in that moment. And that might change. But that's awesome. Yeah, I love
I
that.
I agree. So yeah, I just think that financial freedom is very, 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 very important. So are there any tips that you can give to people and that maybe don't have the resources right now to
Hmm.
jump out and up? Because I'm sure when you started, you didn't have any resources to start out and just
No.
start flipping houses, right? So what is your advice to those women who are like, I want a little more financial freedom? Um, you mentioned creativity, right?
Hmm.
Like, how does that play into that for you?
Yeah. So one thing I do with the people in my real estate community is we share resources. So somebody called me yesterday. She's got a deal she needs money for. She called me, and this is a woman who normally lends money out, so she's got money, but she doesn't have money right now. So she calls me, and I might have time to
Mm-hmm.
help someone else out with a deal, and they are working full time,
Mm-hmm.
and so we're very tribal. We're sharing resources, so each of us gets, because it's very difficult to have it all. Even if you did have the money, you would probably lack time or something else. So we share, or you'd lack some knowledge. Those are really the three, right? I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough knowledge. So somebody has one of those, and you probably have some of the other. So one of these needs to be given to be able to create more financial freedom. It drives me crazy. The word passive income kind of makes me crazy because it does take some work. And I think we were talking about earlier, it's not as easy as people want to sell you something, want you to believe. But find what you have to give. And people intern with me who don't have money, but have some skill or time. So we figure it out.
I think that's really good advice. I mean, part of the reason I love podcasting is I get to meet like so many other, especially women, and I love working with strong women because I resonate with strong women.
Mm-hmm.
I get to meet so many other people that are just amazing resources, and we help each other. We're like, oh yeah, you should go on this show, or like, oh, you should be at this person's summit, and like that networking piece when you're just starting out is so crucial because it
Yep.
it really is. And even if you don't know anyone, because I didn't start out in a family that knew anyone, I honestly just started talking to people and then people liked me and I was like, oh, okay, I'll go meet that person, and was really uncomfortable. But the more you do it, the more it feels okay. And then you connect with other people who can bring in different ways of thinking about things that can totally just like launch you way further than if you didn't have those resources.
Yeah. Yeah. It becomes like tentacles. Like you make connection to that person and connection to that person. And they might, what they have might just be their presence, an idea, something they've said, somebody they've connected you to. There's so many things we can share with each other that make us And yet, I do want to say one thing about the advice for somebody. Find your endpoint, which will change. But I do think that's really helpful to give yourself the freedom to at least dream about it
Yeah.
a little bit. That's free, doesn't cost anything to just
That's
say, where do you want to get to?
that's so important. Find your endpoint, because if we're building to something, we need to know what we're building to,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
If your goal is whatever your goal is, you can't even put the steps in place to start to move
Yeah. And
yourself
by
in
the way,
that
those steps
direction.
will not be the steps you take. Let's
Oh
just
yeah,
make that clear. You know.
no.
But I call it like guardrails. So, I know where I'm going, which by the way, keeps growing. I meet another person who has some idea that I love, and then it up levels my goals. But the point is I'm just going down this road, and then I get this negative emotion is like, I think of it as like me hitting the guardrail. Okay, that sucked. Let's come back here. And I'm hitting the guardrails on either side, but I'm going.
Yeah.
And so the negative emotion is normal. It's normalized for me. Oh, that's me going too far to the right, too far to the left. But at least I know where I'm going. I just don't know how exactly I'm going to get there. And I don't know what the path looks like per se.
Yeah, but even if you know like where you're going, just starting out and building that community, right? That's really crucial, because when you don't know and when your plan doesn't work, which you're right, it doesn't work a lot, because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
I have
You
a
make a
group like
guess.
yeah, I have a group like you're talking about. I have other group practice owners that own mental health practices that I meet with weekly, and we call it like our like weekly therapy with one another. And we talk about all of the business problems, insurance issues, employee issues, like just personal issues, like everything. But it's such a great group of women to meet with, because when I have an issue, like we all have different strengths. So, and they have different ways of solving things than me. And when I'm really down on myself, they're like the people that are like, you're doing great. Like, just pivot here, like, focus on this, and, focus your attention on what's going well, and like, forgive yourself for the things that aren't. And having that kind of supportive community in an area of business that you do want to grow, I
Mm-hmm.
think has been super instrumental for me in my growth as an entrepreneur. Because I'm the youngest one in the group. So they've all been doing this for much longer than me, and I respect the heck out of them. They love me because they're like, you have crazy ideas that no one thinks of. And I'm like, thanks. I just don't know how to get there. But then they help me get there. Right. So we all have different strengths, but if we
We
know
cannot do it
the
alone.
end,
We cannot do it alone.
no. And if you know the end goal of what you want, that also helps you in that beginning stages of like, who are the people I should start surrounding myself with? What are the networking events that I should be going to, or even like just the places to be going to? Because
Yeah.
that can be hard to figure out too. Like figuring out where to go to meet people in the real estate world, or in the therapy world, or in like whatever world the finance world can
Yeah.
be.
And don't overthink that. I would suggest, don't just, if you do put yourself out there and start speaking up and saying what you want, saying what you're doing, then you'll find the next thread to pull. You don't need to make it perfect. Just start somewhere. You may not have a real estate group if real estate's your thing. You might have a real estate group in your area, but you might have some kind of, women who walk in the morning group, and someone will have something for you there.
Yeah.
Just
Even if it's just positive words of encouragement,
yeah,
right?
yeah, which is can be absolutely everything, as I'm sure could not. Yeah, I could not do it by myself. That's for sure.
It really, you're right. It absolutely, absolutely takes a village for, especially if you've undergone trauma, because it's
Mm.
dismantling all of the situations and inner voices and patterns over time that we have had, and challenging that. And that's super hard if you're alone. If
Yeah.
you're alone, your brain thinks it's all true. Like you said, when you first get out, it's like, no, this is the way the world is. And you don't get to experience that new world until you meet other people that help open that up to you.
Yeah. They're like, hey, by the way, this can look completely different.
Very, very much agreed. Um, is is there a certain type of person that you love to work with, Sharon?
Hmm. Curiosity is probably my favorite characteristic in a human. So I like to work with, I especially like to work with women. I don't work exclusively with women, but they're the most fun, let's be honest. And I don't know, people may know this already. I didn't know this myself recently. Women are better investors. Like overall, they're more successful at investing. They don't invest as often, but they are better at it. And I think I could come up with all the reasons why that's true. But the curiosity, I think, is something that helps me connect to somebody. And I have a a quarter century now of experience to share, and they have hopefully the eagerness to learn something and to try something, and the openness to to be a little different than they were yesterday.
Yeah, like that willingness to take feedback and run with the advice that you're giving them.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, most people don't. That's about my experience. I would say, 80+%, or at least they don't now. And then I have those people that are like, they just gobble it up and they run. And it's okay not to be that way, but I find it so funny and fun when that happens. I'm like, they're like, well, you taught me how to do it. I'm like, I know, I teach a lot of people how to do that.
Well,
They
those are the type A go-getters that want to learn, right? Like they don't want you to do it for them. They want you to teach them so that they are self-sufficient in the future.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to handhold someone as much as they need to have that consent with themselves to go forward. And my goal for them eventually is to be experienced and safe enough to do it on their own. And then bring someone else along with you, please.
Yeah. And for those of us who are not as familiar with the real estate investment, like what does that entail? Are you talking like flipping houses? Are you talking like rental properties?
Yeah. Yeah. So I help people invest in a way that kind of suits them. So we're flipping it. I'm probably, if you're a flipper, if you want to be a flipper, I'm probably going to be on the money side. So I might help you with the money. If you are someone who doesn't have the time to invest in a flip, but you kind of passionate about that, I can help you be the money person to help somebody do flips, and you can be involved in the process. So I'm really a connector between what it is that what resources you have right now. How do you want to put that? How do you want to commit that? And then what are the deals out there that make sense? So I do a lot of lending. Land might be land development. It might be multifamily properties. There are lots of places that can fit, and vice versa. So if somebody's got a house that they need to flip, or I'm trying to think of, they want to do a buy and hold and they don't have enough money, but somebody's got a retirement account, for example. A lot of people don't know you can actually invest out of your retirement account in real estate. So I'm going, hey, if you want to do this, have you thought about this as an opportunity, as an option for you?
So you're providing them if they need the money, you provide the money and you do the lending. But you're also connecting them to the other people and resources that they would need to execute on those real estate transactions.
Yeah. And if somebody has money, I connect them to the deal.
Are you operating only in because I know New York, there's like licensures and stuff. So where are you operating out of?
So I'm affiliated with a fund which can operate anywhere. But we don't have, I like to have those places that I know. I like to invest in places I can get to. So and we have plenty of opportunity here. So I'm from Georgia to Indiana. I'm in Tennessee. So but I can help people. I've done deals in California. That's where I'm from originally. So
anyone in the US can contact you and you can help them pretty much with whatever they need to. Because it sounds almost like the best way the way my brain is now describing you is like consultant, right? So I'm like, if I ever wanted to do a real estate transaction and like be like, hey, Sharon, like I want to have a rental property so that it's like continuous income and like I could go vacation there or whatever. Where do you're the person to go to be like, what areas do we buy that in? And what,
how do I do this? How do I find it? All of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So consulting is something I do. And back to like finding resources. So I have a deal that I don't know as much about as I'd like to. So I hired a consultant for this deal that's all they do. So relying on somebody else's expertise in an area to give additional eyes gives safety. It's a wise thing to do. Just, none of us know all the things. I have a broad range of knowledge, and then there are experts that I go to in any particular area. I can do, certain kind of transaction.
Going back to your previous comment about why women might be good in investing, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that women are better at men at knowing what we don't know. And asking
I think that's probably one of many dozens of things. Yeah. That we're better.
I just, men don't like to ask for help. That I feel like is one of the biggest things that has helped me is like being able to be like, hey, I'm not good at this. Like, yeah, I'm the business owner, but this piece of running the business is not my forte or jam. So I'm going to find a human that's good at that thing and hand that task off because it doesn't have to be my responsibility.
That wasn't natural for me. And it's been a game changer for me to be willing to say, oh, I'm not good at this. And that's okay.
Yeah.
I am really good at the things I'm really good at. So there's a book, I don't know if you've heard it, but I talk about it all the time. It's called Who Not How.
Who Not How. I'm going to write that down.
Well, it's so, for ambitious women, so good. So it's about figuring out not how you do, you have your end point, right? But not how do I get there, but who can help me get there? Suddenly just blows up your possibility. Like all of a sudden they can speed you up. Like, I mean, I could speed someone up 20 years, right? Literally, right? With all the things that I've done wrong along the way. So other people do that for me. Just the same.
Yeah, no, that makes complete and total sense. And I think when you're starting out in business, that's always the struggle is like getting the money to hire someone that can propel you. But it's something that we have saved for. Like I couldn't do it originally in the beginning to the extent that I wanted to, but I would save to have coaches that could get me to the next level because especially when you're launching something new, you are actually probably saving way more money by speaking to an expert that knows what they're doing and knows the pitfalls that your brain is not aware of yet, than trying to bootstrap it on your own a lot of the time.
If you don't have the money, like I said, I have people who come to me offering to help me out with tech or something that I definitely can use some help with, and I can help them with what I know. So we just train.
Barter system.
Yeah, totally buddy system. And it means I don't have to have, or you don't have to have all the money to hire all the employees necessarily. Again, think about what are other ways to get around that obstacle.
Yeah. Very, very, very smart. So Sharon, where can people find you? How can they contact you?
So easiest way is to come to my website, recurious.com. There you can go to my Instagram and all of that. My Instagram is just Sharon Conour, but spelling that name is probably going to be easy for everyone. So
Yeah, side note, we had a whole conversation in the beginning, whether it was Conour or Connor, Conour, for those who do want to follow Sharon on Instagram. It's Sharon, SharonConour.
Yeah. I try to give educational things, keep people, giving them tidbits about how to do things. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was lovely talking to you today. I think that you brought a really interesting perspective about financial freedom and overcoming hardship. And you are an amazing example of what happens when women reclaim their voice and their autonomy and, put themselves out in the world, because it takes a lot to rebuild yourself after what you've been through. So I commend you. And I really, really, push anyone who's interested in real estate investment or development to reach out to Sharon, because she is a wonderful soul, if you could not tell, and an amazing human to just be around, and a wealth of knowledge. I want to thank our listeners for listening today, and I'm going to remind you guys that you are good enough.
Thank you for listening to Good Enough with the Trauma Therapist. We appreciate you listening. While our host may provide some personal and professional advice, we want to remind you that this show is for entertainment purposes only. Each individual situation is unique, and Good Enough is not a substitute for mental health treatment. If you need a therapist and are located in New York or Missouri, feel free to reach out to us at liendr.com or resilient-mo